the to order. It is Tuesday, January 17th, 2023. We are, this is a hybrid meeting participating in person here at City Hall Auditorium. I have Deb Ancito, I have Lorraine Pesky and Christopher Bass participating via Zoom. We have James Wright.
Hello.
Mark Bushkin. Before we begin the meeting, please stand and press.
United States of America.
America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
All right, item 1 on the agenda, I'll call it, just so that we're on record that we did actually hold this public portion. I'll entertain a motion to open the meeting to the public. Mr. Banks.
Yeah, the other thing I was gonna tell you is,
I'm hearing something. I am too, so is TV. All right, so motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries, there being nobody from the public. We'll move right into item number 2, and we'll take this in 3 parts. Item 2A, I'll entertain a motion to accept the regular meeting minutes from October 18th, 2022.
So
Second.
Yes, seconded by Mr. Anderson. Questions or comments on the minutes? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
An abstention for Mr. Bushka. Item 2B, I'll entertain a motion to accept the special joint meeting minutes with City Council from December 5th, 2022.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. President. Mr. Anderson, are there questions or comments on these minutes? Hearing none, I'll call the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
And for the record, abstention goes to Mr. Banks. Excuse me, Mr. Bushka. Item C, I'll entertain a motion to accept the special joint meeting minutes from the City Council and Board of Education from December 5th, 2022.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. Do I have a second?
second.
Second by Mr. Bass. Questions or comments on these minutes? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstain.
All right, we'll move right into 3. This is a report from Comptroller Robin Stancia.
evening. We have a lot going on in our office currently. I did send out the expense reports through the end of December. We are working on getting caught up with revenues and making sure they're all posted. So hopefully we can get those to you over the next month. We're just behind with vacations and holiday and people getting sick. So we're working on getting that caught up. Budgets are being submitted. We received, I think, most of them. A couple were being delayed, but we're working on getting those. We worked on the budget calendar this afternoon, so we can send you a copy of that for those that aren't here. It's a draft, so when you review it, if you have any suggestions or feel that something needs to be changed, please let us know. The auditors are coming back on Monday with a full team, so hopefully we can get that completed by the end of February. I don't know if that's too ambitious, but that's what we would like. Our deputy comptroller is out on leave until the end of the month, so we're just trying to fill in the holes at this point. the valuation, I'm a little behind on that, but hoping to complete it this week so that we can have that. I think they said it's a 6 to 8 week turnaround, so we can get the numbers for the budget. Dan's in the process of doing the official statement for new bonding. And we are working on 1099s, W2s, and 1095s. So we have a lot going on right now for the end of January.
June seems late for mill rate study.
It does. However, if you look back over the last 7 or 8 years, you'll find that that is about the time we actually do set this, and it's a long legislative process, right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like usually we're mid-May.
By charter, we are required to be mid-May, so on this calendar, you'll see Robin made a note that on Monday, May 15th, by charter is usually when we are, the aim is to hit the 15th of May. If we're nowhere near, and I suspect with the state not having adopted their own budget, we would not be anywhere near. So what I would be looking at that time is a motion by the city council, some action by the city council that would authorize an extension of time. I was looking through the state statutes a little bit earlier today. Robin and I were going through adoption processes. And there is a statute that allows the legislative body of the municipality by a vote of 2/3 of the legislative body to modify the charter as it relates to budget adoption dates. In other words, any other charter provision that needs to be changed would be changed by referendum, right? By a vote of the residents. But there is this small little statute that says strictly budget dates could be decided by the legislative bodies. If we wanted to go back and look at, like I said, historically, what has been happening over the last decade, it might be something that we want to consider, just so that we're not consistently seeking an extension of time.
Yeah, just like I said, I'm obviously the more time the better, especially we know how it gets at the end of that period, so the better revenue numbers we have, the better, we have for making final budget decisions, so.
Yes. I think that between wanting this, as much information from the state as possible relative to its budget, but also we want to be cognizant of the fact that the tax collector does have to prepare tax bills. So after budget adoption, there's a period of time, an appeal period of time that's baked into this approval process. I think it's 2 weeks. 10 days or 2 weeks. That was the statute I was looking for when I stumbled on the one that said we could change the dates. That we're required to wait for any petition from the public that may object to any decisions that have been made relative to the budget. And then after that period of time, the tax collector can go ahead and issue tax bills. So I'm never comfortable going beyond the first week of June. In the past, we've been held up because of the length of time the state has taken. And we've done our best estimates for the state's providing. We can discuss further over the next couple of months to see if maybe there's an appetite for us changing the charter dates and give ourselves a little bit of room.
Yeah, I think that's fair, because obviously, instead of going back and doing amendments in July like we're normally doing, we can actually just get it done with, in early June. So we're always coming back and adjusting numbers because revenue's changed, and we've had times where we've put in a significant hole, we've had times where it worked out fine, so
Even after the state's budget is adopted, there are lapses of time before we get the full disclosure of what the city is going to be receiving. This current fiscal year is a perfect example. You know, where we had, through the state's spreadsheets and CCM's breakdown of revenues, we adopted a budget. And 6 months later, Robin gets notice of additional revenues that we had no clue we would be getting, part of a, is it municipal revenue share account?
Yeah, and sales and use tax.
And sales and use tax. So even, you know, even if we're waiting for that state budget, there are numbers that are still in flux at the state's budget is adopted.
Extra revenues.
Extra revenue is, but I just feel like it's a missed opportunity for us to,
Fund some, and not beat ourselves up.
but, you know, if it's $250,000, I'm thinking, you know, were those the 3 extra teachers that were they asked for? Or is that the, you know, the additional capital budget that Public Works Director is seeking? So I do always, it doesn't make me happy when we find out that late. But you're right, it's revenue, not surprise expenses.
Well, while we're talking about revenue, just while we're on the subject, do we expect revenue from recreational marijuana sales to count for 22 and for obviously 21, 22, and then 22, 23, and then 23, 24. So there should be surplus this year and then additional revenue for 23, 24.
Yes. We did not put in our budget any expectation for revenue from the cannabis sales. Keeping in mind in May and June, we had no idea what, whether or not we were going to, our planning and zoning commission was going to allow cannabis retail. That was the first step. The second step, we weren't sure when the state was going to be actually issuing licenses for retail and micro cultivation. So far, here we are in January. We have one hybrid dealer. Our medical marijuana dispensary was granted a retail license. They will be a hybrid dealer. It's Stone River on Muncie Road. And they are not open yet. Last week is when cannabis sales were legal. I believe our retailer is hoping middle of February or end of February.
Yeah, I saw beginning of February.
Yes. The projections based on conversations that I've had with Stone River, based on population, based on trends, and data that they've collected, they believe that there would be or could be up to $300,000 annually in revenue for cannabis taxes. I've been working on a policy as to what to do with that additional revenue because the state statute is very clear that you must spend it only on certain expenditures.
Like public safety is one of those things.
It is not.
It's not.
No. Unfortunately, what is allowable are neighborhood improvements in the community where the cannabis retailer is located. Education programs, education programs for drug and alcohol, mental health and addiction services. Support services for people that are transitioning from incarceration to probation or post-incarceration housing. So really, we're very limited as to how we can spend this. And I've got a draft of a policy. Robin and I were reviewing it last week. It really needs a little more detail. When we talk about public safety, I'm thinking under the mental health and addiction services, I'm reading into it that perhaps some funding for social worker in the police department might qualify under those kinds of services. And I know that the police chief has expressed an interest in bringing those services into his department. So, I'm doing a little bit of research just to make sure that that would be a qualified expenditure. And I wanna, make sure that I fully understand what neighborhood revitalization or neighborhood improvements means when it says in a community where the retailer is located.
So there's no community over there.
Well, yeah, does community, yeah, what does community mean? Is it the entire Torrington community? Does it mean, you know, is it just the, a geographical area?
Yeah.
Immediately surrounding?
That's what it sounds like, because, you know, they wanna tell neighbors, you know, the state wants to be able to say, hey, in our statute, it says that your neighborhood's gonna get improved based on this retail cannabis spot being in your neighborhood, so, you know, don't worry, there can be pothole here, but you'll have new roads and new lighting, things like that, so, yeah, I'm curious
Yes.
what that entails, because if that's the case, then we need some more downtown for some,
Well, that's the conversation that we were having, you know, does this give us a little insight as to where we really want to place these retail or micro cultivation? You know, do we really want to say, look, if you approve this location in the south end, and those are zoning, those are planning and zoning commission decisions. You know, we know that we could put a good percentage of that fund toward any revitalization in that area. Versus something on East Main Street where we really don't need any revitalization, it's a commercial strip.
you gotta believe community revitalization includes like community policing and neighborhood outreach, right? I mean, You would
Except that it says streetscape improvements.
oh, so it is hard,
It is,
it's hard,
this,
yeah,
and-
streets, sidewalks, telephone, you know, lighting, stuff like that.
yes,
It's interesting,
infrastructure type of improvements.
right?
Yeah. So interesting, and I appreciate that you brought that up, because what I'm finding interesting, and, you know, and I'm trying to wrap my head around all of this and how we look at our budget. So we have our general revenue. That, you know, you might have some limitations on how you spend that, you know, our town aid road or any of those. You must spend those and budget for those in your operating budget, and it must be used for that particular project. What's been happening in the last couple of years, the last couple of legislative cycles, are the cannabis revenue, cannabis tax revenue, which has to be spent in a certain way. We have the NIP bottle redemption, or, and I'm sure that there's a better word for that, little tiny little shop that you can buy at the package store. That revenue is sent to the municipality, and you can only spend it on recycling efforts. We, as you all know, I do believe I brought to this board a few years ago, authority to participate in a class action lawsuit against some of the major opioid manufacturers and pharmaceutical companies. So that revenue is also coming. Those are structured settlements that will be happening over the next 9 or 10 years. And again, those funds can only be spent on certain recovery, education, and treatment opportunities. So a little creep, I think, in controlling what revenues we receive and then how we spend those revenues. And it's a little disconcerting because if the cannabis revenue is $300,000 for a city the size of Torrington, you know, we can only spend it on streetscape improvements and education treatment programs, and I think there's some youth employment, which is a good thing. Our youth service bureau could be a beneficiary of some of these funds, you know, but that's it, you know.
Right, we could reduce other line items that, you know, that could offset other line items like, you know, road improvement, because if we know that we're revitalizing an entire neighborhood, streets, that comes off the schedule, and that reduces our liability on that side for road improvement. So at the end of the day, we can still offset, even though we spend on specific stuff, we reduce line items other places.
But once you really improve it, then it's 20 years.
Right,
It's a 20-year improvement.
right,
Well, what do you do the following year when you have another 300,000? And $300,000 is just, it's sort of like a dart in the dark here.
Yeah,
Because when Chief Baldwin did his research, some of the municipalities he spoke with were bringing in $3 million.
and I would think that you
That's a real problem for us. How am I gonna spend $3 million, on
you would think that there's gonna be some change to that legislation, because if that's the case, like I said, you can only repave streets and sidewalks and streetlights for so many years, I mean, what else can, so I would probably like to believe and would hope that there'd be some type of amendments down the road that kind of opens that up, or obviously,
As
everything's.
long as it still keeps coming back to.
Right, as long as it goes
Correct.
back into the community.
We have a little bit of experience with.
Right, but just like other things, they've gotta open up those guidelines, I mean, look at ARPA, yeah, look at the first ruling of ARPA compared to the last, it opened up pretty significantly, right? On what you could, like it started very narrow, when it first came out, the first ruling, but then by the time the unofficial final ruling comes out, it's expanded, so I would think that there's probably something down the road for that as well, but I guess we'll see.
So, as far as, planning for the 23-24 year, because I think that was the second part of your question. I think what we'll do is we'll probably be conservative in what we, believe would be a revenue stream. Because it is in the statute, identified as general revenue that must be spent on. Those expenses will show up in our expense budget. The revenue will show up in our revenue line item, and we'll just have to somehow make sure that we're budgeting it so that it's really transparent and clear what expenses will be offset by those revenues. So a little bit of work for us to do to make sure that we hit those marks. I will tell you with housing needs rising to the level that they have between our affordable housing plan, Hartford Healthcare's community health needs assessment work, and statewide assessments. I'm hoping that if there's an opportunity for us to utilize some of these funds to support housing needs, whether it's in the community where the retailer or a potential micro cultivator is, I'm hoping that I see a strong need for a housing department here at City Hall. That housing department being, a department that would help us run or administer, I should say, our small cities programs. Everything from meeting with the consultants and property owners that are applying for the program to alleviate some of the stressors that fall to the treasurer's office with economy. I see this department or this department head dealing with the fair housing regulations, because all of those complaints on fair housing come to the mayor's office. And Maurette Wall, my office, is fielding those phone calls, which really are beyond her job description and her, her scope and knowledge. I also see that with the mandate of developing and assembling a fair rent commission, I see this department head or this person being the liaison to that fair rent commission. So if we could also look at that cannabis revenue and helping to offset or defray the cost of some housing department, then there would also be room for us. So it's still quite a bit of research, and of course I won't present anything to the council or this board until I'm confident that what I'm presenting is good information and advance some of those initiatives. In that housing also, I would even lump in the homeless situation, because as it is right now with even winter sheltering from December 1st to April 1st, and this winter sheltering this year is in Winston. Myself and members of my staff are on weekly calls that can go anywhere from 60 to 90 minutes. It's a lot of taxpayers' dollars being expended, by the mayor and mayor staff listening to, report outs of, what's the capacity, what's the transportation, what food is being delivered on Monday and who's taking care of Thursday. So, if this housing also, helps to undertake some of those conversations and advance them, I see this as being a little bit of a win with those funds. And the community at large, because those are things that are community-wide issues, not just one-offs. I'm glad you asked that question, that rambling answer.
It's all good info.
All right, so, as you heard Robin say, the draft budget calendar is here. It's close to what we did last year and the year before. Our budget subcommittee would be looking for, members of the Board of Finance to serve on that. I have 2 members from each of the respective boards, Finance, Safety, and Council. I already have a commitment from Board of Safety that Commissioner Benedetto and Cogswell have agreed to serve again. I know in the past it's been Mr. Reyes and Ms. Pesky. Are you saturated yet? We'll do it. Thank you. Can I come on or?
Yeah, sure. Unless anybody else wants to jump in.
Yeah, no. Unless
Anybody want to go to 19 meetings between now and June 6th? Any takers? No? All right, let's do it.
It is, yeah. And of course, I mean, it's open, it's a public meeting, so any other board member that wanted to attend, welcome to attend. I just have to be careful to put members in the audience and not every days. All right. I know it says, I guess if there's anything else, Robin, from your report? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there were also, with the financials, were also the other post-employment.
Yeah, the disclosures, yeah, so those are current, those are talking about.
In light of the fact that the stock market has not been performing as most of us wish it were, is that any kind of a problem in terms of what we projected?
I would say no, because the 2 years prior to that, we far exceeded what our expectations were. So I think when if you look at it, a graph or an annual, where we should.
I have to look, we would have to look just to see where we're at.
You would know if there was an alarm bell going off though. There was a shortfall, so I think.
But we're talking about OPEB trust?
Yeah.
Oh, there is a shortfall.
Well.
About 140
yes.
million.
Well, I was like, non-created by us.
When you set it up and you said you would expect a certain rate of return, it's based on a certain rate of return. I mean, I know that's a problem, but it'd be a problem at the state because they kind of rose colored glasses on.
So,
So I
We don't have
misunderstood
we don't have
that.
evaluation yet.
no, it's Hooker Holcomb that does that. And Steve Lemansky usually comes out and does the report and tells us whether we should reduce or lower our expected rate of return.
Yeah, contributions.
Then they also calculate what our annual required contribution should be.
So that hasn't been calculated. That's part of the valuation. The disclosure just shows you where we're at with contributions, what we put in.
Yeah.
And we were late on our deposits just because it's a change of staffing, but they're in there. But the valuation will tell us a lot more.
I'm looking to the screen as we're having this conversation because I think this is Mr. Anderson's favorite trust whenever we have surpluses at the end of the year, or we're talking about how are we going to start to chip away at that $140 million liability that OPEB has. But we do need to bring Steve in for the evaluation and do a report so that we have that recommendation. It's interesting, I was reading an article with the state's partnership, the Comptroller's Partnership 2.0, I think it's called. It's the state insurance, which is running away. You know, they had more claims against the fund than revenue that came in. And they keep trying to open that, you know, and invite other municipalities to participate as a self-insured municipality. I know I've had that conversation a number of times with our union representatives, and I've always, you know, pushed it back and said, I'm not sure this is the right fit for a town, city, for a city the size of Torrington. So OPEB, self-insurance, all of that stuff. I know it's all Greek, but sometimes it is best just to keep it small and manage it ourselves.
There would be a little explanation for Deb on OPEB. I don't know if she's new. I don't know if she.
I know, I'm sorry if I'm using the term.
Yeah, that's okay.
OPEB is the other post-employment benefits. So for our retirees, these are, for the most part, it's insurance coverage, it's health insurance. If a police officer or firefighter can retire at the age of 55, you know, we keep them insured until they are 65, and then they can go to Medicare. So we have a financial advisor do the valuation of the plan, and then from that valuation project out.
I know she's new, so.
Thank you. New but familiar, right?
Yeah.
So Mrs. Pesky, when you asked about the disclosure statements, I was thinking about police and fire, municipal employees mostly. Both, because OPEB, you know, I think we all know, we're not really like to be.
Oh.
Any of those pensions, I think, the final quarter of 2022 might be a little. All right, final call for questions of the comptroller. Now we'll into item 4. I'll entertain a motion to consider business by department heads.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Bass.
Second.
Second by Ms. Pesky. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, to our treasurer, Mr. President.
Yeah, so as Robin said earlier, I'm working on the official statement for our next bonding project. So of course, we're working with Bill Lindsay, who's our financial consultant for bonding, and Sandra Dawson, who's our bond counsel. And we're going out to bond for $17,250,000. Then we're going to go out for general obligation bond anticipation notes, better known as ANS, for $24,350,000. And Bill sent us a preliminary financing schedule for that. And so I have to have the preliminary official statement completed by next Friday. And a rating workshop between February 6th and 10th. Comments are due on the first draft, February 7th. Second draft will be sent out for us to review on the 10th. The information will then be sent to the rating agency. And we've got a rating call with the rating Standard & Poor's sometime between February 13th and 17th. February 17th, comments are due on the second draft, preliminary official statement. February 2nd, rating due from Standard & Poor's. And also February 22nd is the final posting of the preliminary official statement. On the note sale will be on March 1st. And the execution of documents March 9th, March 15th on the note closing. So that's where we've got a pretty busy schedule.
So between those two funding mechanisms, we're looking at an additional $41 million from debt service. If you move between the lines where I'm going with that.
And the interest rates.
Although Bill felt the interest rates, and we can pull out and review again when Bill Lindsay from Munistat prepared the projection, you know, what would this cost the taxpayers by rate, mill rate increase, et cetera. He was in the threes, the 3+ percentage rates. So even back then, he was being conservative in his projections. So fingers crossed we're in that area.
Yeah, it surprised me.
Yes, yeah. So questions for Mr. Cronin? Right. We'll keep you updated on that as we make our way through it. And we are working with the Board of Education Building Committee chairmen, just so that we're identifying what their cash needs are over the next 12 months, 14 months. Because obviously what we're trying to do is establish that funding stream that keeps the cash flow, so as the bills are coming in, they can pay. They are submitting all of the invoices to the state construction grant department, schools construction grant committee. Those reimbursements are usually 6 weeks behind the submission, but we recently learned that that office is going to stretch those reimbursements to 2 months between them. That's correct, 2 months.
That's what they, every other month.
Every other month.
Yeah.
So like you can see where we're gonna have more funds out before we get any reimbursement. Hence the larger sum. All right, if there are no questions for Mr. Farley, we'll move into item 5, I'll entertain a motion to consider business by mayor and members.
So moved.
Mr. Bates,
Second.
thank you, Mr. Bushka. All in favor?
Aye.
Right. Anything, Mr. Bates?
Nothing.
Ms. Busby?
This isn't really our purview, but in a way it is. There's a lot of talk in the community that the high school project is behind and over budget and all that. And I know it's not. And I feel like there should be perhaps periodic updates from, and it can be a joint release from the mayor's office, from the building committee, and from the board of ed, saying where we're at with the project. Because when I get asked something like, I don't have obviously the details to be able to, I can say, no, it's not, but I'm not able to give it any teeth behind that. So if there was something that, every other month, or, where are we at? What, we've poured how many yards of concrete and, how many steel beams are up and all that sort of thing. Because, part of the reason that we're going out funding is for that project. So letting people know in the community where we're at with the project.
Absolutely. Right. Anything to say to you? Sugar screen, Mr. Wright,
Not tonight, thank you.
Mr. Bushka,
Nothing this evening, thank you.
and Mr. Anderson.
Just looking forward to funding that OPEB. So thank you, nothing else.
Appreciate that. All right, there being no further business before the board, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Reyes.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. All in favor?
Aye,
Aye.
Any opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you all.
thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and that's not, and it's not for the minutes, but just for the members that are here at 6 o'clock, the Board of Safety, I see a Board of Safety member, sitting in the auditorium, is appointing the deputy chief of the police department. If you're inclined to stick around and